To write the processed records to another S3 folder, I'll have to modify this program. This is the same program that I have used. Now, instead of printing, I'll be writing it to a file in S3. Now, how do you do that? To read the files, what we had to do is that we had to download the file from the S3 bucket in the temporary location, which is /temp. And we had downloaded it using emp_data.csv. And after that, we read the file from there. So to write, we'll have to do the opposite. We'll be writing a temporary file in the temp location, and from there we'll upload the file to the S3 folder that we have created. And this is the S3 location lambda_output. It is empty now. After writing the file, or after processing the file rather, processing the input file, this lambda function should write the output file to the S3 location. So we'll modify the program as such. Now, to do that, of course, we'll have to open another file which will be using to write. So instead of emp data, let me name the file as processed_emp_data. And the name of the file would be OF, which is output file. Okay, now the lines, as you already know, it's an array. We have read all the records from this file and put it in this lines variable. So that's why I am doing a iteration of the array. So each record would be there in the line variable now. Now we can write it. We are not planning to write all the columns. We want to write only the employee ID and the email ID. So we'll create a new variable, which is record, and let's write it as a CSV file like this. You are getting this additional columns because of Q developer, which is GenAI, and we'd actually need this. Now, instead of first name and all, we'll be using the email ID. The reason I'm using string, because while writing to CSV file, each character should be having a string value. And now we'll write the file of.write, and then we'll do a record plus n /n. This is the new line, by the way. So for each line that has been read from the input file, that line would be written to an output file, and the location is tmp processed emp data. Now after this, we'll have to copy the file to S3. So for that, let's create another function. I'll not write it from here. We'll be creating a function, and the name of the function would be write file to S3, and here we'll have to provide multiple variables. Now let's see what arguments we'll have to pass. Definitely we'll have to pass the S3 client, because we'll be using the S3 client to write or to upload the file in S3. So this is the first argument. And after that, we'll have to pass the output bucket and the output object. Now, what will I do is that instead of hard coding it, let's get it from environment variable. So output bucket and then output object. So we'll have to pass this also. We'll have to pass both the output bucket and the output object to the function, right? And so now here, using S3 client, I will write this. Again, this is generated from Amazon Q developer. So I just pressed tab. So it realized that I'm planning to write this processed emp data, and it should be in the output bucket and output object. Now, where do I get the output bucket and output object from? So let's get that from environment variable. So for that, we'll have to import the OS module also. And in the handler, let's get the output bucket from bucket name, and output object is from object name. So we'll have to pass these two values. This should write the file or copy the file from the temporary location to the S3 bucket or in the S3 folder. So we have done a very simple data processing, wherein we have removed all the PII data like the first name, last name, etc., IP address, gender, etc. And then we are just uploading the employee ID and the email address to a new file. And let's say this file would be used in downstream applications, and the downstream application is pointing to this particular bucket and this particular folder and the object, right? So that's what we are planning to do. So you can think of it as a pipeline. So the pipeline would pick the files from the output location, not the input location, because the pipeline does not want to process the PII data. So before that, we'll have to have two environment variables, the bucket name and the object name. So we can minimize it, go to the configuration, and here we have this environment variables tab. So I'll be adding two environment variables. One is the bucket name and the other one is the object name. So we can keep it empty, but before running the Lambda function, we'll have to make sure that we provide the values here and then deploy. So instead of doing that, let me provide the values right away. The name of the S3 bucket would be 3am data engineering volume 2, and the name of the object would be somewhere here, lambda output. Let's say, let's copy the URI and put the URI directly, but remove the bucket name, and in the output we'll have to provide the file name. So processed underscore emp underscore data dot csv. Of course we can change it. Right now will not do, so we have put the environment variables also. Now whenever we execute this program, the environment variables would be passed to the program from bucket name and object name. So that would be the output bucket and output object, and we'll be writing the processed file to the output bucket and the object. And one more thing, I'm calling the process data function here. So I'll have to pass the output bucket and the output object name, because these two variables are getting used inside of that function itself. So see, this is the process data function, and inside of it we have this call to the function write file to S3, and here I'm passing the S3 client output bucket and output object as the argument, and I'll have to pass this to process data function also. And the write file to S3 function is accepting the S3 client, the output bucket and the output object as the argument, and after that it should be writing or uploading the file to the output location. So let's deploy this code. So it says successfully updated the function, and now in the input folder I do not have any files, and also there is no CloudWatch log streams in the log group of AWS Lambda function. So we should be able to see new log streams here, and let's upload the first file, which is lambda emp1. Now once we upload, the Lambda function will get executed and it should write the file to S3. But before looking at the output location, let's look at the log streams, because that is what we'll see the first output log. So this is what it is. Let's see whether there is any error or not. It looks like there is any error. It says that process data takes 2 positional arguments, but 4 were given. So you can see the error here itself, right? So we do not have to go anywhere else. We can see the report also. The build duration was 690 ms, the memory size was 1 GB, and the maximum memory use were 66 MB. Anyway, so here the problem is that I have to pass the output bucket and output object also. So all the 4 arguments have been given. Now let us deploy, and I'll delete this file also and upload it again. Now there should be one more log stream coming in. So this is the new log stream. Let's see whether there is any error or not. Looks like there is another error. So it says it not found when calling the head object operation. So I think for some reason the file was not found. Let's see why that is the case. I do not see any issue here. So let's deploy it again and upload a new file. Okay, so I have the new log stream, and this time it was successful. I think there was some problem with the deployment. Maybe I did not deploy it correctly. So the upload is done, and I should be able to see the processed EMP data file in the output files or in the Lambda output, right? So here I should have this process EMP data. The size is 26 kilobytes. Let me download it and take a look at it. So it should contain only the ID and the email. So you see, we have only the ID and the email. So this is how we can read files from S3. Whenever you upload a file, do a very small lightweight processing and upload the processed file in another S3 bucket. Now one thing to note is that I imported 2 modules here. One is Boto3 and the other one is OS. OS is operating system, which is provided by Python automatically, and Boto3 is the AWS SDK for Python. Now because we are using an AWS environment, meaning the Lambda console, I did not have to do a pip install of Boto3. But if I use some other library which is not provided by AWS out of the box, let's say PyMySQL, it should error out. And there is a way to fix that error. So I will show you how to do that in the next video. But as of now, this is how we can read from S3. This is how we can write to S3. And not only that, We can read from SQS also. We can read from Kafka or MSK also and write it to S3 or any other database as such. I have not seen Lambda getting used so much for processing data from either Kafka or Kinesis. S3 and SQS are the most typical use cases that I have seen so far where Lambda is used in the data processing.